number 3000.
Wow, there are so many Godzilla films out there. 32, by my calculation, Godzilla feature films exist if you include the American Godzillas and the Japanese ones. The character has appeared in TV shows and cartoon series and stuff like that, but actual feature-length films, there are 32 out there. The 32nd film, Godzilla, Planet of the Monsters Part 1, was actually released just the other day and was streamed to the Terradome, so I managed to catch it and I wanted to give you my review of it. But before I get into that, I wanted to just talk about the actual Godzilla films as a whole. What I love about this series is, even though the basic premise is a giant monster attacks a city, they seem to tailor each film into a different story, which makes them feel fresh and different for the most part. I mean, some of these do, sort of look very similar to each other, but each one does present like a new story, and it just surprises me with even this 32nd film that they've still managed to keep the Godzilla franchise feeling fresh and interesting. For example, take Shin Godzilla from 2016. It had been 13 years since Toho had tackled the character of Godzilla, and since Final Wars. And I was really interested to see how they would actually, change things up and make it still fresh and innovative for the franchise. Because there's so many films doing so many different things. How can they, play it in a new way? And I was surprised that they managed to pull it off. Not just, make it interesting and fresh, but they actually made it a thoughtful movie that sort of stuck with you for longer than you expected. I thought I was just going to watch Godzilla trash the city and then that was it. It was just about the action. And they also made the character of Godzilla really interesting because they changed some of his abilities and made him sort of a different entity for humans to tackle. But yeah, really refreshing take. Maybe I'll do a commentary for this film someday, but today we're actually talking about Godzilla Planet of the Monsters, which was Toho's first animated Godzilla film. So the movie centers around, planet Earth has been abandoned by the humans because the monsters just won. They took over. Godzilla trashed everything and the humans had to evacuate planet Earth. And then the basic plot is they return to Earth to see if everything's okay, and if Godzilla's still there, so they can reclaim their planet, because going out into space and looking for another habitable planet is proving to be a lot more daunting than they first anticipated. And it creates a very sort of somber atmosphere throughout. They got the humans feeling really at despair. They're at a loss. They don't really know what they're doing. And then when they get back to Earth, obviously, Godzilla is still there. So then they have to, come to terms with, do they attack or do they flee? And I was surprised by this film that they focus so much on the grief of the humans, which is something that a lot of Godzilla films do. Quite a lot, especially in the first one with the kids all singing, in grief and stuff after Godzilla's attack. But in this film, it was almost the focus. Other films, they have a scene to show you that and then they move on. But this film was, core theme was basically fighting back rather than just succumbing to Godzilla's wrath. The animation was absolutely amazing. I loved it. I loved the sort of cel-shaded style of it. It reminded me of Zelda Wind Waker in parts. But yeah, it's the animation was really cool, and I was worried that through animation, because Godzilla's been animated before in the past, but I've never felt that they've truly managed to capture his weight and his the actual destruction and how heavy he is and all this sort of stuff, and more his size. He looks big in the old cartoons and all this sort of stuff, but the scale of it was never really captured in a way that they capture in the other movies. But in this one, they managed to nail it. Godzilla, whenever Godzilla stamps around or whenever he shoots his atomic breath and stuff, you really feel it. And that's also down to the sound design. There's when Godzilla's atomic breath goes off, it's very bassy and you really kind of feel it, hit your chest. So with animating Godzilla, I think they really did nail his weight and the feeling of his presence whenever he's on screen. And because they were dealing with spaceships and stuff, they also had some grand, scale images of space with ships, vistas and all this sort of stuff. And there's a great shot like where they're around Saturn, and you can see this tiny speck that's the ship going past, and it just really creates a sense of scale within this movie, even though it's animated. So I think they really pulled that off. The storyline is a little basic. It is basically just them going back to Earth to fight Godzilla to reclaim Earth, and while that's a little bit thin at first, I think they managed to keep it interesting with some of the dialogue and character plays and things you're seeing on screen. They hold your attention, and they don't draw. They make it more complicated in what the characters are discussing in terms of their philosophical situation more than their rather than focusing in on like a complicated plot or something. They sort of have a thin plot, but then the themes and stuff are more complicated. I really did like Godzilla's design. I don't really want to spoil it too much with what happens with Godzilla and stuff, because I think it's best left to experience it in the movie. But yeah, Godzilla's design in this was again different, and he looked super menacing, and I think he's the biggest he's ever been. It certainly looked that way. I was watching it, I was going, wow, they've managed to not only capture his weight and stuff, as I mentioned before, but his size is just really captured. And you're like, I think that is the biggest Godzilla they've ever put to screen. And I don't know where they're going to stop. I mean, are we going to have a Godzilla film where he's like literally eating planets and they're like watching him up in space? I don't know how that would work, but it would be pretty interesting to see. I wouldn't put it past them. These films have things like time travel and black hole portals, wormholes, all this sort of stuff. Like they deal with a lot of crazy sci-fi concepts. There's aliens and chimp alien people and all this sort of stuff. So I wouldn't put it past them to have like a Godzilla that is like the size of a planet. But yeah, in this film he's huge and really cool and menacing whenever he appears on screen. So as I mentioned, the film is called Godzilla Planet of the Monsters Part 1 because there are going to be other chapters in the future. I don't know how many. I could probably imagine 2. I think they're probably just going to do 2, maybe 3, like a trilogy. But the film has a very open ending, which is something that some people might not like because they're like begging for more. I mean, I could have sat there and watched it for like 3 hours. I kid you not. If they'd put the 2 parts together, I'd have just watched it all. But the ending it ends on is so good that like I just didn't care. I was like, yeah, that's really cool. And even if it was a standalone film, I think you're left going, holy shit. So I think that's a good feeling to end on when ending a movie. But I'm eager to watch part 2 whenever they release that. I don't know what the title of it is at the moment, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on Godzilla Planet of the Monsters. I will be reviewing part 2 when it's released, and part 3 if they continue it on. So look out for those. And I will get round to reviewing and talking about these Godzilla films because I haven't really done much about them on this channel at this time. And there's a lot to chew over here, so I really would like to get stuck in with Godzilla, but I don't really know where to start. Oh, proximity alert. Who could this be? There shouldn't be any ships around these parts. Oh, Godzilla, 1998. How are we doing?
Jackson, my dear boy, how are you doing? It's good to see you.
What are you doing out here?
I'm actually out here looking for you because a little Rodan told me that you were going to do more videos about the Godzilla franchise. And considering that it's the 20th anniversary of my movie this year, I thought it would be a good idea for you...
Yeah?
to celebrate it. And I brought you this pink hat to wear when you do your review of my movie or commentary or whatever you want to do. How does that sound? Jackson?